just stretching, because when you have endometriosis and you have chronic pain, you're always clenched up. You're in a ball or your body is clenched. So just stretching in bed, those muscles can be a huge stress reliever and help with your pain.
Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Clark. My mission is to inspire, motivate, and empower you. And most of all, I want you to wake up. With functional medicine, we discover what causes infertility and eventually reverse the condition. Today, I'm welcoming Jessica Murnane to the podcast today, and we're digging into why switching to a plant-based diet could help manage endometriosis. So I connected with Jessica a few years ago when I found her One Part podcast, and I especially love her interviews with cookbook authors, and their discussions around everything food always makes me want to try a new recipe. And her journey with endometriosis particularly resonated with me, and I love how she took charge of her own health. So let's give you a little bit of her bio here. So she's the creator of the One Part Plant movement, author of One Part Cookbook, an initiative to get everyone on this planet to start eating one plant-based meal each day. She's host of the One Part podcast, where she brings tough questions to inspiring people, founder of Know Your Endo, an endometriosis education and awareness platform. And Jessica has contributed to and appeared in magazines and websites that include Bon Appetit, Goop, Shape Magazine, The Kitchen, Mind Body Green, The Couture, Food 52, Pop Sugar, and has spoken at Apple, Taste Talks, Seed, Food and Wine, Good Fest, and Wonderlust. And you can check out her website at Jessica Murnane check out her website at Jessica, MURNANE.com. Before we jump into today's show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on iTunes or whatever you're listening to this, and make sure you never miss an episode. So welcome to the show, Jessica.
Hi, how are you?
Great. So yeah, I find most people that have come to this line of work really have their own story. So could you elaborate on your story for us?
Sure. In terms of, I think everything in my career really started with endo in terms of where I'm at now. Mm-hmm. So, it's funny because when I got my cookbook, when I received the first copy in the mail, I just sat down for a second, I looked at it, and I actually thanked my endometriosis because I wouldn't have a cookbook if it weren't for my endo. So I did not cook previously at all. And 8 years ago, it'll be 8 years this summer, I was actually supposed to get a hysterectomy because I have stage 4 endometriosis. And it just got to the point where it was so severe that it was affecting everything in my life, and including just my mental health and well-being. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. So I had a lot of different surgeries, went to a lot of different doctors, and the consensus was for me to get a hysterectomy. And I was actually okay with that because at the time I didn't know the reality that a hysterectomy doesn't necessarily take away endo pain, but I just wanted everything out of me that could potentially cause me pain. But then a friend who was staying with me, she was visiting from LA, she really noticed how much pain I was in. And I don't know if, I'm sure a lot of your listeners experience or have experienced chronic pain, and you get really good at hiding your pain because you don't want to make your whole identity about the fact that you're in pain all the time. So it's not something I showed to anyone, but she saw it and she went back home and she started doing research, and she found that a plant-based diet could help with endometriosis, pain, and symptoms. And so she sent me a little link, and I always get so nervous to think about if that link would have gone into my junk or spam, because I wouldn't be talking to you right now if it had. And I tried it. I tried this plant-based diet that was laid out on this website. And I really, it's something I say in my book, One Part Plant, but I had zero faith that it was going to work. I was just trying it because my friend was nice enough to send it to me. And I tried. And within a few weeks, I started to feel like I wanted to be awake. Things were starting to change. And then within months, I was a completely different person, and I never got the hysterectomy.
Yeah, that story is so powerful. The power of food, right?
Yeah. And I think that one thing that I really like to point out is that I don't think it's just food.
Right.
And it's something that I share a lot on Know Your Endo, is that food was the first tool that I used, and food helped me have less inflammation, which meant that I could get out of bed, which meant I could exercise, which meant I wasn't as depressed. So it really was a chain reaction. I don't think that if I only ate a plant-based diet, that I think I would feel better, but I don't think I would feel as good as I feel.
Totally. Yeah, that's what we say. It's sort of like looking at that personalized diet for you. And then, because you could have this pristine diet, but then if you've got all these mindset issues or a lot of stress or toxic relationship, whatever it may be, you still may not heal all the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's still something that I struggle with. I had a very, very personally traumatic last 2 years. You would sound like a movie if I told you the things. And there's a lot of studies that show that women that have more severe endometriosis have higher cortisol levels. So my stress management it has to be happening, and I'm not able to manage it all the time. So I definitely have some low points still with fatigue and with depression. And not depression like I used to have, but just a lower energy. And I'm at least now able to identify that it's like, okay, things are happening. It's a little bit stressful right now. Let's get through this and you'll be okay. But not being in pain makes that stress so much easier to manage.
And what are some tips you have to kind of help you get through that? Is it more meditation or what do you?
Yeah, I think it's about what works for you. I think that people are very quick to say meditation,
Mm-hmm.
which that's fine. But sometimes for me, meditation is just going in the shower for 5 minutes and just letting the water run on me and not having any distractions of my phone or my family or my friends, and just being able to be. And sometimes that shower can change my whole day mentally. I think that sometimes literally just walking outside and sitting, whether it's cold or hot or whatever it is, sometimes just a little bit of fresh air can change everything too. And then I think exercise for me is ginormous, even if that means I got a rebounder, a little mini trampoline. And that just, because, there's times when I do have fatigue, or there's times when I'm just like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym. I know that if I pull out that little rebounder and jump for 20 minutes, it can alter my entire mindset. Even just stretching in bed. That's something. I have this program called the Endo Toolkit, and we talk a lot about just stretching, because when you have endometriosis and you have chronic pain, you're always clenched up. You're in a ball, or your body is clenched. So just stretching in bed, those muscles can be a huge stress reliever and help with your pain.
Yeah, the whole meditation thing, people, and that was something that I resisted for years. I was kind of like, I did it on and off, and so it doesn't always work for everyone, right? So it's kind of find those things to incorporate a bunch of stuff, and also to know when we've reached your limit. Sometimes we just keep piling more things on, and it's like, wait a minute, let's just pull it back. And yeah, the shower thing is a really good one, because that's John Kabat-Zinn, the grandfather of mindfulness, kind of talking about when you're in the shower, make sure you're actually in the shower and feel the water, running on your skin, and smell the soap. And so really to actually be there, which is really, that's very restorative. Yeah.
It's crazy, because the other day I was at just like the coffee place I go to, and one of the guys there, one of the people that work there, was telling another person how he's like, oh yeah, I caught that in the shower. Because a lot of phones are waterproof now. He was watching Netflix in the shower. And I'm just like, totally cool. Sometimes I listen to podcasts when I'm taking a bath or something, but yeah, like you don't watch Netflix in the shower. Like, just give yourself 5 minutes. Like, give your brain a break for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I guess kind of along with unexplained infertility, 50% of that actually people have endometriosis. And it really, I guess some of the symptoms can be misdiagnosed. Can you maybe share a little bit about that? Maybe your journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the reason why, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I think the biggest two reasons why women with endo are misdiagnosed so much, because I mean, it takes an average of 10 years to get diagnosed with endometriosis and an average of 8 doctors. I think one of the reasons why is because so many of the symptoms we are not connecting to periods. And yes, I think this has to do with our uterus and the lining of our uterus, but a lot of these symptoms, I'll just give you an example: GI issues, painful diarrhea, painful urination, urinary urgency, retention. If you're having those issues, you wouldn't connect that to your period. So I think a lot of women, they might be going to their general practitioner and saying, oh my gosh, I've got this really bad diarrhea, or I'm constipated. And then they just slap on an IBS diagnosis, and it's never explored anymore. And it's crazy how many women I talk to with endometriosis that have been diagnosed with IBS. Like, I would actually love to see that statistic, because it's probably like 80% of women with endo have been diagnosed with IBS. So I think that we don't talk about these symptoms to our gynecologists. And then if we do talk to our gynecologist about painful periods, then what are the metrics on that? Like, how are we supposed to, what's painful to someone might not be painful to someone else. And I think that a lot of people put a lot of blame on male doctors, but I've had more negative experiences with female doctors not believing me, because if there's someone that has a period that's very normal, they don't understand what it means when I say that I have a painful period. So I don't think it's just male or female doctors. I mean, I think it's all doctors need to be more aware. And I think we as women and people that don't identify as women that have endo, we just need to be very conscious of what the symptoms are. And we need to share those symptoms with other women, because the crazy thing is that I've had so many people read my cookbook, and I put a little bit about stuff about endo in there, because I thought if I've got this platform, I'm going to put a little about endo in there. I've had so many women email me and say, that list of symptoms in your book was the first time I had ever seen myself in a book. Like that was the first time that they had ever seen all of their symptoms on a page, and they were able to get a diagnosis from a cookbook. Yeah. Like, that's weird. I think that, I go to high schools and talk about the symptoms with girls there, because if we could just know that a lot of these symptoms are connected to endo, we could get diagnosed much sooner.
Yeah, an average of 10 years. That's crazy to be in pain. I remember years ago, I worked with a woman who had endometriosis. And every time it came, she'd be off for 3 or 4 days, and then running back and forth to the bathroom, and like headaches, all the digestive issues, and just an excruciating pain. And then sort of feeling embarrassed that, I'm calling in again and it's my period, and feeling, I guess, some shame around that, or just embarrassment that I've got to call because now this is coming again and every month.
Yeah. And I think that's where you also get into the emotional and depression that can oftentimes happen, because if you know that every single month you're going to be in excruciating pain, why do you want to live? And not to be too morbid, but a lot of women have that in their head, because you don't look forward to that every month. You plan your entire life around your endometriosis. You plan vacations, you plan work, you plan functions with friends. And so we have to figure out tools to manage it. And I don't think those tools are drugs and hysterectomies.
That's not getting to the root cause of why it's there in the first place. Yeah. So I guess for symptoms, you're talking, so GI symptoms, obviously painful periods, but it's hard to kind of quantify that. Anything else as far as things that
Yeah.
are?
And I want to say painful periods, what that means, painful periods that if you take in a leave, it doesn't do anything for it.
Yeah.
And I think that the trickiest thing with women that live with endo, it's the only pain, that's the only type of period they know. So they're not able to say, yeah, this is a painful period compared to my friend's period. So you kind of have a baseline that's a little bit messed up, like your scale of pain. So fatigue is another huge one. I saw this post the other day on Instagram that described the feeling of endo fatigue. It was cramming for an exam until 2 a.m. and then running a marathon and then not going to sleep and then doing that again twice in one day. So it's just like this feeling of like you just feel so lethargic and sleepy that you have a hard time functioning. And I also want to point out that with endometriosis, you can have one of the symptoms or you can have all of the symptoms. So when you're looking at that list, like I have a friend that was just diagnosed at 34. The only symptom that she really felt was severe fatigue and GI issues. She didn't have the painful periods. So I think that everyone is very different with the way that their symptoms manifest.
And then as far as the stages, because sometimes we think, and you mentioned you have stage 4. We think stage 4, that's the worst. Can you maybe?
Right. And I think that's the tricky thing also with stages is because the stages are really how much the severity of the disease within your body. So with my endo, it spread to my organs. So, and just to be clear, let's define what endometriosis is. It's when the lining that is similar to the lining of your uterus grows onto the outside of your uterus. And that's why it doesn't make sense when people say that that a hysterectomy will cure your endo, because that is your uterus, and this tissue is growing on the outside of your uterus. So if you get a hysterectomy and your endometriosis is not properly excised from your body outside, it doesn't matter. So so it's the type of lining that grows onto the outside of your uterus. And for mine, because it grew onto my rectum and bowel and it's just everywhere, the severity of it was stage 4. But you could have stage 1 and have tiny spots of it or medium-sized spots of it and be in just as much pain as someone that has stage 4. Or you could have stage 4 and not have as much pain as someone that has stage 2. So it's more about the severity that it's covering. And I think more and more we should probably drop the stages, but I think that it is helpful sometimes for people to understand. I don't know, not that it gives them a pass in life, but I think that a lot of times with endo, we really beat ourselves up about why we can't do things. And sometimes it's a nice reminder to be like, oh yeah, you have really bad endometriosis. It's okay.
Yeah. And so you're the founder of Know Your Endo. And can you share why you decided to create that organization? Obviously a personal connection, but why to sort of spread this message?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, after I wrote my cookbook, I was receiving so many messages from women saying that it was either the first time they felt heard or it was the first time that they saw the word endometriosis and they were finally able to get diagnosed. And that just, when I received those messages, part of me, first I cry because I feel so sad that they went for so long. And then I got mad because it just felt infuriating to me that it took them that long to get diagnosed and it took a cookbook to do it. So my agent and I were talking about, she's like, I'm giving your book a lot to people, but I really, is there any more that I can give them? Could you create like an ebook or something? Like, no, actually, I should just create a whole website with more information. Like, I want this to live. And I think that in terms of endometriosis information, there's really what I saw in the past, and maybe this has changed in the last 6 months since I've launched it, but there's two camps of endo sites. There's the personal journey blogs, which are amazing, where women are really documenting their stories. And then there's the complicated medical websites that say that drugs and hysterectomies are treatment options. I didn't really find a lot in the middle that is just very, very basic information. Here are the symptoms. Here are the treatment options. And then I also have a section called Ask a Doctor, where I have one of the top endo surgeons in the country answering questions, the most frequently asked questions. Because again, I think the personal journey blogs are great, but they're not doctors. And it was important for us to have the most up-to-date information on the website about endometriosis from a doctor.
Yeah, I love it. And so how are you just, I guess when people read your book, they're coming to the site then, or are you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing it's interesting because with endometriosis, once you hear the word and you think that you have it, or you know someone that does, I mean, you automatically Google endometriosis diet or endometriosis help or treatment. So I actually get a lot of traffic to the site just from organic searches. And then I did start a Know Your Endo Instagram page, but because the website I'm not going to have a blog. Like I said, it's just going to be very streamlined, just basic information. We do have a newsletter that goes out once a month. That's sort of a roundup of all our favorite resources and things that we found during the month. And then we also have a course that we do twice a year called the Know Your Endo Toolkit. And so that's how we stay engaged, and that's how people are finding us.
Okay. Yeah. So it's at knowyoureendo.com.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit to the plant-based side of things. Yeah, actually the Nurses' Health Study, so it's a Harvard study of over 18,000 nurses over the course of 8 years, found that women that had the highest consumption of protein had a 41% greater risk of ovulatory infertility. So,
whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah. So it's like, you know what? And I like your philosophy of let's just start with one plant-based meal a day. So share with me about the one part plant movement.
Yeah, so I think it's tricky to tell people to go 100% plant-based. I've said this before, but it's one of my favorite things. My friend Damar always says if the word vegan was above the apples at the grocery store, no one would ever buy an apple again because I feel like people they have a negative connotation with veganism. And I don't use the word vegan for one part plant because A, I use honey, and B, vegan isn't necessarily healthy. I'm talking about whole plant-based foods. And I think it is 100% feasible for everyone to start with one a day. I'm not asking you to eat 3 a day. I'm not asking you to change your whole life, but I think it's 100% you can do that. I think everyone can do that. So I think why one meal a day is also a good entry point is I don't think that we talk enough about the social aspect of changing your diet. It's, for me, I don't want to lump everybody into that, but I think for a lot of people, myself included, changing your diet is extremely hard in social settings, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthday parties, when no one else is eating the same way that you are. So I think that by eating one plant-based meal a day, you're kind of easing into it. You're kind of getting your groove. And then my hope is that you eat one and then you're like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And then you eat 2 and then maybe you do 2 and then maybe you go all the way in. But it's a good starting point because I think that within the food movement or meditation or everything wellness world, there seems to be a very all or nothing mentality. And I don't like that at all. So with One Part Plant, we're trying to get away from that and just really starting at a good point and doing your best.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up partially mom we were vegetarian, and then I left the house. Then my parents became vegan. So they've been vegan for like over 30 years.
Wow.
It was like hardcore back then. And my mom used to
Yeah.
get on her soapbox a little bit, telling people, go plant-based, and everyone, and I was like, oh, you were a really weirdo. Like, what do you do? I remember she'd bring her little string bag to the grocery store, and I'd be like hiding, but you can see, her health, and my dad, because my dad doesn't cook, so he becomes vegan by living with her. But he, both of them are quite healthy. So, I've seen the benefits of that. And then for myself, I left that healthy eating environment and started eating the standard Western diet. And then my health kind of took a nosedive because I was eating like plates of brown food. And I remember always like, I was always kind of like craving, like I'd go to plant-based restaurants or vegan restaurants and I liked it, but I was always kind of craving more vegetables and like real food. And then not until I'm not totally vegan or plant-based. I do a mixture of, more just really whole foods and real like delicious foods, but there's still some animal protein. But yeah, it's like feeling how your body can, what feels good for you, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, with even a plant-based diet, like brown rice and I do not agree with one another. Like I never eat straight up chickpeas because they just don't, my digestion does not like them.
Bloating,
So I think even with and because I have endo, so I'm already pretty inflamed most of the time. And then I'm adding to the bloat. It just feels uncomfortable. So I think even with a plant-based diet, it's experimenting and seeing what works for you and what doesn't, because I don't think that all plants are created equal for everyone's system either.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess with people getting into doing one plant-based meal a day, sometimes they could have some thoughts around that it's going to take too long to prepare, it's going to be chopping all day long in the kitchen. Is there a go-to like fast plant-based dinner you can think of, or meal that you just sort of can whip up?
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that we make a ton in our house is I blend some almond butter, or you could use peanut butter, with some veggie broth and some tamari, or you could use soy sauce if you wanted to, and some lime juice and a little bit of hot sauce or red curry or something. And it literally takes 30 seconds to blend that in the blender. And you just make a quick peanut sauce that you can pour over some veggies and rice. I mean, that is like, you can make that meal is in the time it takes to cook rice. So, and I also think if you have the means and the budget, you don't have to cook your own plant-based meals. Like there's a lot of great plant-based restaurants and whole food restaurants where you can get a meal, you can pick it up, you can get it delivered. But I think even that is a great way to make change if you feel a little uneasy about cooking yourself or not really ready to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love searching out those kind of restaurants and actually going in, because I don't do gluten, dairy, or corn. And so to be able to go in there and go, oh, I can basically eat most of the things. If you ask for a gluten-free menu in a plant-based restaurant, I can eat most of the things on that menu, which is because sometimes, I'll go to a restaurant. It's like, okay, I'll have the salmon, the rice, and the vegetables. This gets really boring. Whereas if I go to a plant-based restaurant, I'm like, damn, I'll be able to have some vegan ice cream. I just find there's way more options.
I know. I've been to like 100% vegan restaurants before with friends, and my head is exploding and my eyes are big. They're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I can eat everything on this menu. Like, I can't decide. What am I supposed to get? Yeah, it's so fun. I never thought that would be the thing that makes me so excited in life, is to be able to eat everything on a menu.
I know, I'm the same. As far as creating your own, like a plant-based dish of your favorite foods, so sort of maybe if someone likes pasta or burgers, or, taking that standard Western diet animal protein and then making that into a plant-based, is there any tips you have there?
I mean, I think it's about making dishes that you already love and figuring out how to make them more plant-based. I mean, I think that where we sometimes get a little, I don't know, I think sometimes where we get a little mixed up is when we love, let's say, lasagna, or we love a certain Thai dish, but we're like, well, but now I eat plant-based, so I just have to eat steamed broccoli and brown rice. It's like, no, like,
No.
you know, that's boring. Like, you know,
Yeah.
so I think that, you know, one of the things that I first did when I changed my diet was take the recipes that I loved in my life and made them a plant-based version. And I'm not talking about using a bunch of fake meat, soy crumble kind of thing.
Yeah, no.
Like, for instance, the lasagna in my book is probably the recipe that I get the most emails and messages about, people saying that they took it to a party with all meat eaters. One woman, which felt like the hugest win in the world, she said that she made my lasagna for her Italian mother-in-law, and that the mother-in-law loved it. And I think that's the thing too, is when you are preparing these new foods for your family or for friends, you don't have to announce that it's vegan and gluten-free and whatever. Just make delicious food. I think that's the key, is like, just make delicious food that you like. It doesn't have to have a label on it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And so I have your cookbook, and it actually came in, I got it at a great time. I got it 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was in a little bit of a food rut. I got to say, we were just making the same thing over and over again. And I'm foodie, and I love food. So I don't know how I got in that rut, but I did. Anyway, so I got your cookbook, and I made a whack of stuff out of there, actually. So I made,
Oh, good.
yeah, I got excited. So I made the creamy butternut and squash tacos, which, yeah, those were crazy. Like, it was, I guess, lentils with squash, and then we had a brown rice wrap that we used. And then
Can I tell you something about that recipe? I literally debated for days, well, maybe even weeks, about including that recipe, because it was a recipe I'm like, it's so weird, sort of, that I was like, am I just a weirdo that I think this tastes good? Like, is this just a weird thing? But I went ahead and included it because I needed another recipe in the book, because I had to deliver 100 recipes. And now, I mean, I get so many messages about that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I included that and just trusted my gut on that one, because it's kind of a weird recipe, but for some reason it works.
It's really filling with the squash, and then the lentils is just, and it's nice and warm, and I really enjoyed it.
Good, thank you.
Think of doing that combination before, so it was cold. Yeah, I also did the overnight oats. So I've been on an overnight oats kick for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've just been doing it every day. So, because I kind of did that on and off for a while, but I was in a smoothie routine. So now I'm like, okay, it's nice to have that. Another one I did was the breakfast potato bowl. I added sweet potato. So just like whip that. I actually had it for dinner. Then I added sprouts on top of it. So it was,
yum.
yeah.
I'm going to revisit my cookbook and
I know.
because when you write a cookbook, you're just so tired of testing the recipe that you just, I don't even know so I need to go back and revisit some of these, because I forgot that they are good.
They're good. Yeah. Cause it was potatoes, and it was some black beans. And I think there was some kind of some little spices and stuff, like, you could do some hot sauce on top and stuff. But anyways, it was really good. And the sprouts.
Cool.
Another one that was like really cool was, honey peppermint cups. These were so freaking easy. And I felt like some sort of gourmet, like chocolatier. Like, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, because it's like you just do the layer of chocolate, and then it was like creamed honey with peppermint. You mix I did creamed honey. I think you had a different type of, I think a regular honey, but I had creamed honey. I mixed it with like a drop of peppermint, and then you put the chocolate at the bottom, and then the honey and peppermint in between, and then slap the chocolate on top and throw it in the freezer. And my whole family was, really into those.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, I mean, if anyone is considering changing to a plant-based diet and you're thinking this stuff sounds hard, like, that's a perfect example of, it's literally 4 ingredients with the salt. But
the salt.
When I was making that book, I had moments where I questioned myself and thought the recipes were too easy, but I think that's what people want. I mean, that's what I want. I don't cook recipes that are complicated at all.
No, absolutely. I'm the same. It's sort of just a lot, like 5 or 6 ingredients, whip it up. And usually I found most of the times I had the stuff in my pantry.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Yeah,
awesome. And as far as your podcast, you've had some, like, lots of really cool guests on there. I was just looking at a few of them, actually. So Ruby Warrington, actually, who I went to her retreat Over
You did?
at Paula. Yeah, it was so weird. So her book, Material Girl in a Mystical World,
Uh-huh.
the book, I saw the book in 3 different places and I'm like, okay, I got to read this book. I read the book. I'm like, this book is so awesome. I'm like, oh, she has a retreat. Oh, good. I literally like a week later, she had her retreat, January the 1st, 2018, booked it in. And it was like, I'm not an overly emotional person, but we're in this retreat and people are leading us through it. And they're like, you'll never cry these tears again. And I'm like, I'm not going to cry. What are you talking about? There's like people in the room. And literally the person beside me is sobbing. And I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. And then literally like lying down and the tears are just like falling into my ears. So yeah, her book is awesome. Do you have anything? I think you've had her on a couple times.
Yeah, her and I have become good friends. The way that we met is very interesting. She is actually, before she just started doing the wellness stuff full time, she was a journalist.
Yeah.
And so she interviewed me for a London magazine when my book came out. And that's how we met. I flew to New York and had an interview with her in New York. And then somehow we were talking and she's like, I have a book coming out soon. I'm like, what? And then I got the book and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I had her on my podcast and then we spoke together at Wanderlust. So yeah, Ruby is just, it's not surprising to me that you would cry in a room with her because she has like a superpowers just to kind of make you feel things,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. And she's writing a new book on I guess Sober Curious or
yes.
yeah.
Yes. She's an amazing person.
Mm-hmm. And another one of my favorite, Dr. Kelly Brogan.
Oh yeah. Very controversial lady.
I know. I love her. I have her book right here beside me, A Mind of Your Own. Sort of, she's she trained at MIT. No, where she's trained at MIT and then Cornell, and then really went to a functional medicine approach to healing depression, anxiety, ADD, all sort of mood disorders, and using food and mindset and functional testing, all of that, and really like listening to her speak is she's so provocative.
I mean, and she is the opposite of One Part Plant because she believes it's like all or nothing. It's very hardcore. And I think she would be fine if I said this, but she was the only guest that I've ever had that would not give me a plant-based recipe because she felt like every meal should have some type of animal protein.
Yeah, she's definitely
so at the end of every podcast episode of mine, each guest gives a plant-based recipe. And a lot of my guests aren't plant-based, but all of them are like, oh, I'll find one. This is fun. But she was like, I'm sorry, I can't give you one unless it has animal protein. I was like, okay, that's fine. This is your thing, man.
Yeah, she's awesome. One more that I really liked when I saw on there was Chantel Bacon, some from Moon Juice, and her cookbook. I literally got her cookbook. I read that. I was just obsessed with it. It's so beautiful.
It is beautiful. And I think that's a good example of taking your wellness to the next level because it's too much for some people to start there. It's kind of like college of plant-based. It's right. Like start with the easy stuff and then graduate to Moon Juice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And she's got these little coconut jars where you get the coconut yogurt and then put all these different little things on top of them. And it's just really cool cooking.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Yeah. And as far as any kind of resources that you typically like a book or a website, or an app, anything that you like to recommend?
Gosh, well, I would say for women with endo, The Doctor Will See You Now is a really great book in understanding the different types of surgeries for endometriosis because they are not all created equal, and excision surgery is the way to go, but no one ever talks about that. So The Doctor Will See You Now is the book that I 100% always recommend to women with endo. And then in terms of a cookbook, the book that taught me to cook was this book called Clean Food by Terry Walters. And it's probably like 10 years old now, but I think it's the best starting point for learning to cook plant-based. And I also love the First Mess cookbook too for plant-based cooking.
I haven't even heard that one. First Mess?
Yeah, the First Mess. It's one of my favorites. But yeah, I mean, I think it's finding a vibe that works for you. I mean, it's the same with cookbooks and with plant-based food. It's the same thing as watching TV. You know, you could be more of a comedy person. You could be more of a scary movie person. Not all plant-based cookbooks are the same. So it's finding a voice that you resonate with. It's finding recipes that appeal to you. So I would say if you pick up a plant-based cookbook and you're like, this is not my thing. It's like, maybe it's just that cookbook is not your thing. Just really explore. Because I had bought probably 20 different plant-based cookbooks when I was getting into it. And I didn't really care for any of them. And then someone gave me as a present clean food and everything clicked. So just got to find your thing.
Yeah, and the documentary Endo What? You recommended that on your site, and I watched it last week, and that's a super powerful documentary.
Yes.
Kind of really
Yes.
for women. Yeah.
Gosh, thank you for suggesting that. Yes, Endo What is absolutely amazing. It's one of the only documentaries on endo, but what I like the most about it, it is taking a holistic approach to endometriosis and not just focusing on drugs and surgery.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can you share any one success story? I'm sure you've got lots of listeners kind of calling in with things that they've made changes, and either, I'm not sure if you have anything to do with people getting pregnant with endo, or if it'd be just healing with endo.
Yeah, well, with endo, it's a tricky thing to use the word heal, and I'm not judging that you said that. It's just people, when I say anyone that says heal, people are like, it's not healing. There's no cure. But I will say, I think that I will cry, but I think the messages that, see, I'm going to cry about it. It's like, it's so weird. When people email me and they're like, I loved your lasagna recipe, I'm like, oh, that's cool. When people email me about their endo stories, I lose my shit. But I will say the messages that get me the most are, and I get a lot of them, are the women that finally feel heard and they don't feel alone anymore, because it can be a very lonely place sometimes living with a chronic illness because you don't feel like anyone understands what you're going through. So I've also had a lot of messages from women say, I'm in my 30s, or one woman was even in her 40s, and because of my podcast, it was the first time she heard of the word endometriosis, and she was able to get diagnosed and understand why she had been in pain for so many years. So I think it sounds braggy to say those things, but I think that the biggest success stories for me are people getting diagnosed. Yeah. I mean, that's like cool if they get pregnant, but the first step is being able to know what the heck is wrong with you. So, and I do want to point out, as much as plant-based food and meditation and your shower is important, it is equally important to make sure that you are still getting checkups with your doctor, because as I say on our website, no amount of green juice is going to make your endometriosis go away. It can help you manage it, but it's not going to stop it from growing. So you still need to get ultrasounds. You need to demand ultrasounds. You need to still continually get checked out, because as healthy as I am and as great as I treat my body, last summer, they found a giant baby head size cyst on my ovary that I wasn't aware of because I felt so good. And that I wouldn't have known if I hadn't demanded to get an ultrasound. A lot of doctors won't give you ultrasounds unless you're in pain.
Okay, so is that something for endo to get annually, then an ultrasound, or what is there?
I think you should. Sometimes you have to fight to get that done. I had asked 3 years in a row to get an ultrasound and was denied to get one. And if the surgery that I ended up having to get was a 6-hour surgery and very, very traumatic to my body. And if someone would have allowed me to get a ultrasound 3 years prior to that, it would have been a very different story.
Right.
So anyway, my point is not to be a downer. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that like all of this wellness stuff is amazing, but you still need to see a traditional doctor to make sure that everything inside is okay.
Yeah, that's why we kind of take the thing from Dr. Oz, where it's the board of directors, and you have your nutritionist, your coach, your chiro, your masseuse, your OBGYN, your RE. So it's like including everyone, but you're in the middle, and the conductor of
Right.
your own, conductor of your own healing, and using all the different things, not just because a lot of times we get just stuck on the one in Western medicine that they know everything, but it's the table, and then you're in charge.
Right. And I think opposite of that is sometimes they think that food is the only thing you
Well,
need.
yeah.
It's like, let's put the crystals down, which are cool, and also see your doctor.
Exactly. And then as far as you have some 10 plus endo resources and tools on your website, can you maybe talk about that for people too?
Yeah, sure. If you, are you going to include,
Yeah, I'll include it in the show.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So that link on our website, it's actually fun stuff. It's my favorite books, favorite menstrual hygiene products, favorite natural products. There's a little bit of everything. I think there's probably about 20 total, and links to all of them. But I think that when you have endo, you just want to someone to tell you, what should I buy? or what should I look into more? What movie should I watch? So a lot of the things that we talked about today are on that page, but there's a lot of other fun ones too. And it's kind of a nice little beginner's guide to getting some resources for endo.
Awesome. So that's knowyourendo.com /endometriosis hyphen resources.
Yeah. And if that's a lot, remember, well, it will be in the show notes, but also at the end of every single page on our website, there's a little box that you can enter in your email to get those resources too.
Awesome. Great. Well, it was fabulous having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it's really great the work that you're doing, because you and I emailed about fertility is not something that I've had to deal with. But I don't know how painful it can be, but I've seen people in so much pain around me dealing with it. And for there to be a whole podcast to help women is amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your words of wisdom and giving tips to people, and also talking to us about the plant-based diet. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Hey there, Sarah Clark here. So are you struggling to have your baby? First of all, please know that my heart goes out to you. I support couples worldwide who are struggling with infertility to conceive and have healthy babies. Women like Rita, who gave birth to her beautiful daughter after following my fertility coaching system. Or Danielle, who after 2 failed IUIs was able to get pregnant after a supercharged fertility discovery call with me. So here's how you get my help for free. So I offer a free supercharger fertility discovery call. And on that call, I'll create a plan with you that is going to help you fast track your success. So this call is not for everyone. And I'm really picky about who I get to speak with. And I have a strict but totally reasonable criteria that needs to be met in order for us to move forward. So here's who I can help. So first of all, you need to be able to explore your infertility diagnosis in a new light. So this offers for people who are open-minded, they're coachable, and if you can do that and want to double or triple your chances at the fertility clinic or get pregnant, awesome. So let's get on the phone and chat. Also, you must be an action taker. So someone who's committed to seeing results, you're able to follow directions. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do anything bizarre. But if you're one of those people who like to consume a ton of information, but don't like to spend time implementing and seeing results, then the call's not really for you. So I only want to spend time with people who are genuinely committed to their own success. So just click on the link in the show notes and apply, or go to fabfertile.com and click on the free consult. So it's a really short application that just tells you about your health, how long you've been trying to conceive, and how soon you'd like to be pregnant. So seriously, this is going to be the best time you've ever spent on your fertility. Looking forward to chatting. Talk soon. Thank you for listening to Get Pregnant Naturally. Seriously, it means the world to me that you're here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can be notified of upcoming episodes. I'm excited to offer you a special gift. If you are a U.S. resident, text FERTILE, FERTILE, to 345345. You'll be prompted to enter your email address, and you will receive our 3-day free fertility diet challenge. The challenge includes delicious chef-prepared recipes that are specifically designed to enhance your fertility. Download the recipes and try them this weekend. For U.S. residents, text FERTILE, FERTILE, to 345345. For non-U.S. residents, go to www.fertilitydiet.com freebie.com to access your special gift. That is Fertility Diet Freebie, FERTILITY, Diet, DIET, freebie, FREEBIE.com to access the 3-day free fertility diet challenge. And I love this quote by Dr. Mark Hyman. He's the medical director of the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine and the chairman of the Institute for Functional Medicine. What you find at the end of your fork is more powerful than anything you'll find at the bottom of a pill bottle. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.